How do you get away from identifying solely as a big person? Well, you don't make it your entire life. Movies and television let you step outside of your life for a minute. A lot of these movies are about not giving up. A lot of these movies are about not giving in. A lot of these movies are about character and how you face adversity. Life is like a box of chocolates, where it's not how hard you can get hit, it's how hard you get hit and keep moving forward. Get busy living. I think one of the more profound examples was in. Hello, everyone, and welcome to Big Man, Big Problems podcast. My name is Julio, and I created this podcast to talk about the problems of being a big man. One of the tough things about being a big person, and not just really being a big person, but being a person that has anything that is a little bit different than normal, is those things tend to become your identity. And when you go out into the world, what you feel is and what you think is that's everybody sees first. And maybe that's true and maybe that's not. But the modern world allows us to present ourselves any way we wish to present ourselves. And ultimately, what people end up seeing is not so much whatever physical, I want to say, abnormality you might have, but they really see the person that shines inside. I choose to not identify myself as just a big person. That is who I am, but I choose to put myself out there and basically live my life just like anybody else. How do you get away from identifying solely as a big person? Well, you don't make it your entire life. My producer, Jenny, is somewhat fascinated by the fact that I love movies, I love TV, and I am someone who remembers everything that I watch and everything that I hear. And every time I see a situation or hear of a situation, or someone says a certain word or dresses a certain way, it reminds me of a scene in a movie. It reminds me of a quote in a movie, which just fascinates her to no end. So we thought we'd talk about a little bit of what my favorite movies are, what some of my quotes are, and what inspirations I find from these movies. I don't know where my fascination for movies comes from. I don't know if that comes from a place as a kid of spending a lot of time on my own and finding comfort in Saturday morning cartoons or in the Sunday matinees on WGN or in the specials that they would run Sunday nights, right? Like sometimes they would do The Sound of Music or the Ten Commandments, and the grandeur of going to theater back in the 70s and 80s when we had to wait in line to see a movie, or being one of the people that witnessed the birth of MTV and music videos and how that changed the way we see music and watch music, or even the storytelling. You know, I was never much of a reader, right? Reading always kind of put me to sleep. But watching a movie to me is, I think, equivalent to other people reading a book. And I think some people watch movies superficially. I'm just not one of those people. When I watch a movie, I am enveloped in the movie. I see the storytelling, I see the arc, I see the cinematography, and I like to get wrapped up in the entirety of it. And one of the things that really sweeps me is when I figure out the underlying message of the entire movie. Because a lot of times, you know, we don't see a lot of originality in Hollywood anymore. I think there were, in the early days, right, some writers who really came up with some great original ideas and storylines. And it feels like sometimes we just do that over and over and over again. But sometimes something really original pops up and you could see what the writer's trying to tell you. But even more so, what makes a movie so great is you don't just have the words that a writer wrote, but you have the vision of the director and how he wants you to see it. And then you have the interpretation of the actor and how he wants to present it. When all those three things come together, it really is magical. Movies and television let you step outside of your life for a minute. They let you look into someone else's life in another scenario. And I think it's surprising to us how many times you come across a situation, a movie or a TV show, where it mimics something going on in your life. And it's almost as if they're speaking to you in some way and they're telling you how to move forward. There was a movie back in the 80s called Defending Your Life with Meryl Streep. And in that movie, both Albert Brooks and Meryl Streep died at a young age, and they woke up in this other place. And this other place then decided to put them on sort of a trial and went over events in their life. And what they were really looking for was did you get over your fears in life? Did you face challenges? And regardless of the outcome of that challenge, did you stand up and just keep moving forward and keep living your life? And once they determined that you got over your fears and you decided to, regardless of the adversity, just continue on and start moving your life, once they decided you've got past that, then you can move on to whatever the next level was. And that's really the way I see my life. I see my life as if I'm walking towards a cliff and my life ends at that cliff. And how fully am I going to live my life before I get to the end of that cliff? One of the best things about movies is rarely do you come across a movie, unless, of course, it's some sort of historical piece talking about an event. But even then, they always try to come to a conclusion where the right people win, where good overcomes evil, where light overcomes darkness, right? At the end of the day, Luke Skywalker beat Darth Vader, right? In fact, brought him to the right side. That's just the way things in life, I think, should work out. And that's how things should be at the end of the day. But they do teach us that life is balanced and there's always good and bad, and there's always light and dark. There's always up and down. But at the end of it all, good usually wins. Maybe that's why I remember every line of every movie I see. And maybe that's why I remember things like life is like a box of chocolates, because it is. The thing is, when it comes to life, you don't know what you're going to get. You open a box of chocolates and there's a lot of varieties in there. Some people will read and try to figure out what's in that particular chocolate covered goodie. Some people just take a bite and go for it. I've mentioned Rocky in the past, where it's not how hard you can get hit, it's how hard you get hit and keep moving forward, because that's how you win at life. A lot of these movies are about not giving up. A lot of these movies are about not giving in. A lot of these movies are about character and how you face adversity. I'll even give you a stupid one, Princess Diaries. You know, I raise daughters and they watch these movies. And if you watch the movie The Princess Diaries, there was a line that her father gave her that said, courage is not the lack of fear. It's doing what you have to do, even though you're afraid. One of the greatest lessons in a movie ever that I say on a regular basis to my children, to my wife, to my friends, and to my employees. Towards the end of Moonstruck, if you know the movie, Loretta, whose fiance, Danny Aiello, was in Sicily with his sick mother, who was tasked to then go to his brother and try to fix the fracture between the two brothers. The brother played by Nicolas Cage, and of course she fell in love with Nicolas Cage, and they had a torrid affair. And the time was coming where she had to tell her fiance about the affair with his brother. And he came to the door of the house. She stood up, she looked at her father, and she says, "What am I going to tell him?" And Vincent Gardenia, played her father, looks up at her and says, "Tell him the truth, Loretta. He might find out anyway." I live my life by that. I mean, because what is that saying? There's no reason to make a story. There's no reason to lie. There's no reason to hide who you are and what you've become. Just tell them the truth. Because if we're telling the truth, we're going to win. If you just watch these movies, they will give you reasons and examples and inspiration of how to live life. You know, I think that if you carelessly or mindlessly go through life and you watch images and you listen to words and you laugh at jokes, but you miss the intention, I think that you are going to miss things in your life. If you're able to listen deep enough, learn deep enough, watch deep enough, and you catch the soul of whatever it is you're watching, that has no choice but to influence your life and to remind you of how to react in a situation or how to behave when something doesn't seem right or things aren't going right, how you pick yourself back up and begin to keep moving forward and accomplish what you want to accomplish. Maybe you don't accomplish it. Maybe life isn't about reaching a goal. Maybe life is about the journey of trying to reach that goal and everything you learn in the process, the mistakes you make, the successes you have. Maybe that's the key to life. Maybe it's not about crossing the finish line, but it's about getting to the finish line. And I think that's what I see in movies, and that's what I see in myself, and that's what keeps me going. I think one of the more profound examples was in the Shawshank Redemption. So if you've seen the Shawshank Redemption, you have heard the phrase, get busy living or get busy dying. If nothing else happened in that movie, and all you took from it was get busy living or get busy dying, then you found the heart of the movie. Because isn't that exactly what I've been saying throughout all these podcasts? Life is a choice. You either choose to not live your life and then just wait until your final day, or you can choose to ignore that final day and choose to live your life every single day. So anytime you spend wasting, regretting, and worrying and stressing is a day you wasted. Get busy living. Thank you, everyone, for listening and listening to all my idiosyncrasies and oddness when it comes to movies and movie quotes and how I think they direct my life or shape my life or guide my life is probably a better way to say it. And hopefully you find a little bit of inspiration from some of these quotes as well, because certainly I know I did. So do me a favor and stop for a second and hit the subscribe button, hit the like button, leave some comments. Tell me what your favorite movie quotes are. Is there anything that you ever saw in a movie or a quote you heard or a situation that you saw that maybe guided you in a certain way or helped you live in a certain way? Love to hear about it from you.